Thursday alone. Another 29,000 flights were delayed, 4,500 of them on Thursday. Things are starting to get better as the weather improves. About 1,200 flights have already been canceled for today, but that's a quarter of Thursday's total. Still, analysts caution that it may be Sunday or Monday before everything's sorted out and everyone's where they want to be. Mark Nimitz, NPR News.
Meanwhile, driving continues to be treacherous. Media reports from Pennsylvania say there's been a massive pileup on the Pennsylvania Turnpike just north of Philadelphia. Dozens of cars are involved and traffic is moving slowly or not at all. Officials with the Pennsylvania Turnpike are advising motorists to take alternate routes. There's no word of injuries. A federal judge has overturned Virginia's ban of same-sex marriage. The judge ruled the plaintiffs faced discriminatory treatment because of the law and declared it unconstitutional. Virginia's newly elected Attorney General, Mark Herring, told NPR's Morning Edition the decision is bringing same-sex couples closer to equality.
The judge recognized that the legal landscape on this issue has been moving and that ultimately the court, presumably the Supreme Court, will need to make a definitive ruling, and that this was an important step toward that.
The judge put a stay on her ruling so opponents of her decision can appeal, but groups opposed to same-sex marriage have vowed to do so. Russia is banning the adoption of children by some citizens of countries that allow same-sex marriage. NPR's Corey Flintoff reports the move is in addition to the law that bans Americans from adopting Russian children.
Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev signed a decree adding a new provision to the law. It says that married heterosexuals may adopt Russian children even if they live in a country that permits same-sex marriage. Single people from those countries may not adopt Russian orphans, nor can people in same-sex marriages. Russia's Orthodox Church and its ruling political party have taken strong stands against homosexual rights, including a law that bans giving information about same-sex issues to people under the age of 18. The law became a major issue before the Winter Olympics. Corey Flintoff, NPR News, Sochi.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 4 points at 16,032. The NASDAQ is down 8. This is NPR. In a recent study of wireless communications at airports, a Canadian government watchdog has cleared that country's electronic spy agency of invading the online activities of Canadians. Dan Karpinchuk reports the actions were not about mass surveillance or tracking.
A Quebec judge who leads the independent watchdog says his office questioned employees of Communications Security Establishment Canada and looked into the controversial activity. It concluded that CSEC's actions were an effort to understand global communication networks and was not directed at Canadians or people in Canada. CSEC has said it was merely collecting electronic metadata, information trails about messages and not the actual content of the messages or calls, to help determine the communications pattern in a public location. CSEC monitors foreign computer, satellite, radio, and telephone traffic of people, countries, organizations, and terror groups, but it is forbidden from targeting private communications of Canadians. For NPR News, I'm Dan Karpinchuk in Toronto.
Authorities in Indonesia say 3 people have been killed in a volcanic eruption on the island of Java. Several airports have been closed, and nearly 80,000 people have been evacuated. The sound of the volcano could be heard by witnesses more than 100 miles away. Ash and grit are falling to the ground across the island, including in some of Java's largest cities. Video footage shows houses, streets, and cars blanketed in thick layers of ash. The government of Nepal is cutting fees for climbers who want to ascend Mount Everest. Officials say this will promote safety, since more people will climb Everest individually instead of in large groups to get a financial discount. I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from Novo Nordisk, committed to diabetes care and changing lives for more than 90 years. NovoNordisk-US.com.
From KJZZ News in Phoenix, I'm Dennis Lang. The State House Committee has approved a bill that aims to help county attorneys prosecute people who assist with suicide. The measure defines assisting in a suicide as offering and providing the physical means used to commit suicide, like a gun. 2 of 4 members of the Georgia Men's Right to Die while filing an exit note for good manslaughter charges in 2011. Some chance is better than none. That's the theory behind the House Committee's vote Thursday to allow terminally ill patients to get drugs that have yet to be approved for use. That testimony from Stephen says she was denied access to drugs 6 months before registration.
We knew they were. The FDA probably knew they were. They were more focused on that process than they were on how to do it.
The measure drew objections from some lawmakers who say the unproven drugs just get patients and clients home. But Representative Kelly Townsend says that misses the point.
The person has no other hope. And so I think they should have that ability to make that decision on their own, to go ahead and make that last-ditch effort. That's their human right to do that.
Under the bill, voters would have the final say on the idea in November. The East Coast is still digging out from a massive winter storm. In Phoenix, forecasters are calling for near-record heat through the weekend. KJZZ's Peter O'Dowd report temperatures will approach 90 degrees tomorrow.
That's remarkable this time of year, even for Arizona. Forecasters predict Phoenix temperatures will be more than 15 degrees above normal. The National Weather Service's Austin Jameson says it's no surprise. When a big storm moves one way, it tends to leave the opposite weather behind it.
There's oftentimes a dichotomy like that in the wintertime. The western parts of the country can be quite warm, and then in the east it's quite cold.
Jameson says this heat wave may pose a danger to people who are visiting Arizona from the frigid East Coast. People who aren't used to dry heat in February can get sick if they exert themselves outside. Peter O'Dowd, KJZZ News, Phoenix.
Well, if you're flying east this morning, you may want to check with your airline. There were some flight cancellations Thursday because of the storm that has hit the East Coast. Most of the canceled flights were to Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Newark. But Sky Harbor spokeswoman Julie Rodriguez says so far there are not any reports of people being stranded in Phoenix.
The airlines are very good about notifying passengers before they come to the airport. So we don't have people waiting around here or showing up and finding out that their flight has been canceled.
Arizona-based U.S. Airways canceled 655 flights nationwide Thursday, about a dozen of those in Sky Harbor. If you have an eastbound flight from Phoenix, check your email or social media networks for updates on flight information from your airline. And if you're headed to Las Vegas for the President's Day weekend, you best keep an eye on the speedometer. The Department of Public Safety says it'll use a single-engine plane to spot speeders on US 93. The Highway Patrol says previous airborne enforcement effort found the average speed on US 93 was 86 miles an hour. The speed limit is 65.
KJZZ is supported by Mayo Clinic, where teams of experts work together to focus on you. Learn which health plans include Mayo Clinic, or you can request an appointment at mayoclinic.org/Arizona.
Checking traffic on I-10 eastbound, expect delays around the tunnel. A crash is blocking the HOV and left lanes. We're looking for mostly sunny skies and a high today of 85, tying the record last week to 1957. For tomorrow, highs of around 87, and Sunday and Monday it should be 85 or 86. It's mostly sunny right now, 57 degrees at 8:10.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Renee Montaigne.
And I'm Steve Inskeep. Much of the eastern part of the country is digging out from the fresh layers of snow and slush. Much of the western part of the country is not.
Snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains is less than 30% of what it should be this year. That means farmers and ranchers will have to get by with much less water than they'd like come this spring.
We've heard a lot in this program about the California drought, and today we can say the Obama administration is promising aid. President Obama will make that announcement on a visit to California's Central Valley. NPR's Scott Horsley reports.
What California needs more than anything is a whole lot of snow and rain. President Obama can't deliver that. But Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says the president's visit to Fresno will help focus the government's attention on the historic drought that threatens to turn part of California, known as the nation's fruit basket, into a latter-day dust bowl.
I think the president wants to reassure people in California, and particularly the producers of California, that we are paying attention, that we're here to help.
The president is set to announce several emergency relief measures, including up to $100 million in livestock disaster assistance. Vilsack says that will help ranchers and dairy farmers whose grazing areas have dried up.
Sign-up would begin in April, and shortly thereafter, producers would be receiving checks that would provide them help and assistance to get through a difficult time.
Audrey Betancourt is facing her own difficulties. Ordinarily, she grows alfalfa for dairy cows and cotton on about 700 acres in Kings County, California, but this year she's letting 500 acres go fallow. She and other farmers have been warned to expect no irrigation deliveries from state or federal canals this year. So Betancourt is rationing her limited supply of groundwater in hopes of salvaging her valuable almond and walnut trees.
Some of our neighbors who only grow permanent crops are literally having to choose which trees to pull out of the ground because they don't have enough water to keep all of them alive.
And that has ripple effects throughout the local economy. Betancourt has already cut her workforce by more than 25%.
We have no water to put the ground into production, ergo we have no crops to plant, ergo we have no work for people to do.
That means some of the people who normally harvest produce that's sold across the country will have trouble this year feeding their own families. Obama will announce $60 million in federal help for California's food banks. The government is also planning to open hundreds of centers to serve meals to hungry children throughout the summer. Even as the stubborn drought turns pasture land in the valley brown, some lawmakers see an opportunity to make political hay. House Republicans have taken to calling this a man-made drought, and last week they passed a bill, sponsored by Central Valley Congressman David Valadao, that would temporarily lift environmental limits, including the Endangered Species Act, so more water could be pumped for irrigation.
Families, farmers, this water should have been going to you to grow crops, to feed families. We had a lot of water. We lost it all. It was dumped out into the ocean in the name of a fish.
The Obama administration has threatened to veto the GOP bill, saying it would jeopardize a decades-long effort to rebalance the way California divvies up its scarce water supply. This year, that supply is especially tight, and Secretary Vilsack says no amount of legislative maneuvering can change that.
I wish this were something as easy as somebody being able to turn on a faucet or a spigot and letting the water flow, but the reality is you can turn it on and there are just as many things that come out of that spigot.
In addition to coping with the drought's immediate effects, the administration is also setting up research centers in Davis, California, and elsewhere around the country to look for ways to adapt to extreme weather. Vilsack says that's the smart thing to do in case this year's drought in California is just the latest sign of a more lasting change in the climate. Scott Worsley, NPR News, the White House.
Let's go now to St. Paul.
I have an egg white McMuffin meal with decaf coffee, please.
Okay, small decaf.
Yep.
And any cream or sugar in that?
One cream.
One cream, no sugar?
That is correct.
That completes your order. 435 first window, thank you.
Thank you.